Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Survivors of the Florida school shooting that left 17 people dead have been marching with thousands of other students to the state capitol, calling for new laws on gun control. It's the first organised protest by a youth-led anti-gun movement which was set up following the attack last week. Well, our North America editor John Sopel is live in Tallahassee. John.
Rita, thousands of people have left their classrooms and have now gathered in front of the state capitol to demand change to gun laws. In the corridors of powers, young people from the school are meeting the lawmakers, trying to get them to change their mind. And later today, Donald Trump at the White House is also going to meet representatives from the college. It might all add up to nothing, but there again, it may be that on the subject of gun control, a wind of change is blowing across America.
A school trip like no other. These students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas haven't come to the Florida state capitol to listen. They've come to speak and demand change after 17 of their classmates and teachers were killed last week.
We are MSC, we're here to make some history. We are MSC.
And they're determined to be heard.
No one needs these weapons that are taking children's lives, and they should just ban them because all they are used for is destruction, and they're just not needed.
And you should go to school feeling safe and be confident that you're there for an education and for a bright future. You're not here to worry about getting shot.
These youngsters will be heard politely and given a warm reception by Florida lawmakers. But last night, those same people voted against even reopening a debate on semi-automatic weapons. The battle for gun control is going to be an uphill struggle.
You're not up here to give suggestions, you're up here to demand.
But that decision, not even to debate guns in the state assembly, has infuriated pupils, teachers and community leaders alike.
I buried personally in the last 4 days 3 kids from my congregation. I watched a father want to climb into the mausoleum with his son. I watched a mother crawl up in a ball who refused to come out to be with her family for the funeral. And they have the gall to not even discuss the issue. We are very upset.
But from the White House, there are small but significant signs of movement. The president apparently in favour of raising to 21 the age at which people can buy weapons. And he tweeted this: "Whether we're Republican or Democrat, we must now focus on strengthening background checks." And he announced yesterday that he wanted to ban bump stocks, the device used in Las Vegas that turns a semi-automatic rifle into a machine gun. These students have captured public attention with their demand for change. But those who've wearily trod this path before will tell you that winning support is a very different thing to winning reform. John Sopel, BBC News, Tallahassee.
Survivors of the Parklands school shooting have tonight joined hundreds of protesters in Florida to call for changes to gun laws. They are demanding the right to go to school without fear. And some say it could be just the start of a national movement. As our correspondent Robert Moore reports, that's putting more pressure on the president to act.
A week ago, these teenagers were hiding under desks and running for their lives. Today, survivors of one of America's worst school massacres came to Florida's state capitol to demand the tightening of the country's gun laws.
We are MSC, we're here to make some history.
Traumatized, they are America's most powerful advocates for change.
Never again! Never again!
Among those lobbying here was Louis Misen, originally from Coventry, who escaped death by hiding in a cupboard.
Honestly, we just want to get the ball rolling. We want something here, because the second we get something here, we can carry that momentum into Washington, because this isn't something that should just be limited to Florida. It's something that should spread across the country. This happened in the suburb of a suburb, and we're going to take this to the national stage. We're not going to be ignored, so the president needs to be prepared for that.
These student survivors say their experience has changed them forever. I mean, those must have been terrifying, unforgettable minutes.
It was absolutely terrifying. It was like I'll never unhear or unfeel or unsee any of it, and just like being there, I just know that no other person should ever have to feel like that, ever. It's insane how it feels, and it's just every single person at my school, all 3,000 kids feel like that right now, and no one else should.
In solidarity, children from schools across Florida have walked out of classes. Others are demanding limits on the sale of high-powered weapons.
We want change! We want change!
Observing that they have the right to go to school without fear.
We want change!
Seasoned lobbyists are passing on their best advice.
But be persistent. Do not back down.
Some seeing in this the start of a new national movement.
I do not know exactly what needs to be done. I just know what we're doing now is nowhere near enough. If I have to keep seeing neighbors die, if I have to keep seeing friends die, and I have to keep seeing other people on the news deal with this same tragedy, they do not deserve this. America does not deserve this. Humanity does not deserve this.
We won't wait! Disarm hate! We won't hate! Disarm hate!
While the protests here continue, the White House is certainly feeling the pressure. President Trump is hinting at banning some rapid-fire gun accessories and improving background checks. But in reality, those are small gestures that will not be enough to silence these voices.
3, 2, 1. Well, for all the passion here, these teenage advocates have had a bitter lesson in the politics of gun control. Yesterday, while some of them were in the gallery, local state Republicans made it abundantly clear they would not even consider banning semi-automatic weapons. But on the other hand, in the longer term, the NRA may have met its match, for these students are determined, and of course, they are also the voters of tomorrow.
All right, Robert Moore in Florida, thank you.
Shame on you, they chanted. Love kids, not guns. Students who survived the Florida school shooting led huge crowds outside the state's capital today, demanding a ban on assault rifles and tougher gun controls. From President Trump, who will hold a listening session with students and teachers at the White House today, a promise to actually make a difference. Well, our Washington correspondent Kylie Morris is in Tallahassee. Kylie.
John, yes, that protest is just finishing. It was an emotion-filled event. They closed out their activities by singing the civil rights anthem, "We Shall Overcome." And that is the mood here. There is a sense of righteous anger powering these young people. I can see a couple sitting across the road with a placard saying, "I shouldn't be afraid to go to public school." They have very simple, very straightforward demands of these legislators inside the Florida State House. It's already been an extraordinary day. They were bussed up the whole length of the state from Parklands to Tallahassee. They arrived last night. They slept in the civic center around the corner from here, and then began their meetings. Now, those meetings yesterday, I was told there were some that didn't go very well. Indeed, a move to try and have a debate over assault weapons on the floor here yesterday failed. But that is not discouraging these students. They are still persevering. Indeed, they had a couple of politicians come out and pledge to them that they will never take NRA money, a key demand from the protesters here. So a real sense that they want change, and they're starting to believe that the politicians might just be listening. They came in their hundreds. From the darkest episode in their young lives last Wednesday, when a gunman shot dead 17 of their classmates and teachers, to this, frontline activism outside the Florida State House. And they found support among a multitude of other groups, from the teachers' union to other local schools, all united to demand change and an immediate political response to the horror Parkland had faced.
We want to leave here having done something, having accomplished something.
Among their number, Lewis Mizzen, originally from Coventry, now a resident of Parkland and a student at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
You know, they're looking at us like we're kids, and I think the one thing we have to do is we have to show them that we're not kids. Well, obviously we are kids, but we're not someone who can be ignored with the next generation of voters. And I think they have to be very aware of that, because a lot of the people here are juniors and seniors, and in a couple of years we're going to be voting, and it's their jobs on the line.
Their pilgrimage began yesterday, a 400-mile journey to carry a message of gun control to the door of the lawmakers who govern Florida, with some of the loosest gun laws in America.
We knew that they weren't going to hear us if we just stayed in Parkland, Florida. We have to go to them and we have to, show them how loud our voices can get, because if we don't, then how are they ever going to listen to us?
Among them, disagreement over where the line should be drawn on gun rights, but united by a belief that this must never happen again.
If someone like myself, I've been a strong Trump supporter, someone like myself has been able to go to the middle ground and understand that there need to be changes, that's great.
We have to do more to protect our children.
The President last night responded by calling on his Department of Justice to propose legislation to ban bump stocks, a device that endows semi-automatic weapons with the power of a machine gun.
A few moments ago, I signed a memorandum directing the Attorney General to propose regulations to ban all devices that turn legal weapons into machine guns.
Then a presidential tweet almost as an afterthought. And yes, of course, more needs to be done on background checks. Even as the students prepared for meetings with lawmakers today, they did so knowing that yesterday a move to debate a ban on assault weapons in the State House failed. What are you hoping for from this, from the visit to the State House?
I'm hoping that me coming to the state capitol, speaking to our higher government, that they will look at me in the eyes and understand the pain that I'm going through, me and my classmates and my town as a whole, because of a simple law that could be reversed, changed, or annihilated as a whole.
Dear Congress, I see the 71 of you. The 71 of you with no heart.
Powered by grief and outrage, these teenagers are determined their school's name not simply be added to the list of mass shootings America experiences every year. They insist this ends here. Speaking to some of the students here about what the president has done or what he's said he's going to do, there's kind of a sense of ambivalence. I think on one level they wanted more, of course, and they wanted it more instantly, but there is also a sense that perhaps this means that the man in the White House is listening and that Republicans will listen to these demands. I mean, it's important to note, I think, that here in Florida there is a real political price to be paid. It is the reddest of red states. The governor is a Republican. The Senate and the House of Representatives here are both dominated by Republicans. So if these families around these children, if other families in Florida decide that they want to really kind of change the conversation, a quick way to do that, many of them are already telling us, is that they will vote out the politicians who've presided over the laws that currently exist. I mean, certainly it's been very interesting to speak to some of the people who survived the Orlando shooting 2 years ago. 49 people were killed there. They honestly believe that if they'd been listened to on gun reform, then what happened in Parkland might not have happened. So there is a sadness here, but also a real sense that they will persevere and a price will be paid by the politicians who don't listen.
Kylie Morris outside the State House in Tallahassee, Florida. Well, now, earlier I spoke to Anthony Scaramucci. He was Trump's friend and head of communications at the White House for a famously brief 11 days. I started by asking him what needs to be done to tackle America's gun crisis.
People are not going to give up their guns. It's just the way it works. So the Second Amendment here is going to outlive all of us. But I think that people are making a very big political mistake if they don't subordinate the right to bear arms and the guns to children's safety. So I think you can live in harmony with both of those things, and hopefully the American Congress will act. The one problem with the gun lobby that I have, and by the way, I'm a big supporter of the NRA. I've done fundraisers for the NRA. I come from a family of hunters from northeastern Pennsylvania. There's been guns in my house my entire life, so I'm very, very comfortable with arms and the right to bear arms. But we better figure something out as it relates to the health and safety of these children. And nobody's going to be able to convince me that there isn't an intersection being able to keep sane people with their guns and insane people without guns. We could certainly be doing a better job of that.
The startling statistic is that there are more guns in circulation than there are people in America. And that is a most extraordinary statistic, given there's no other country on earth where that's true.
There are also more pets. You see, I actually don't like the way you're making that statement, because it's like you're trying to criticize my country. And the truth of the matter is, this has been an unbelievable country, okay? This has been a American dream factory. By and large, when you look at the advantages of the United States and you list them, they almost go to infinity. And when you look at some of the things that are a result of this widespread freedom, certain nut jobs have taken advantage of the widespread freedom and hurt their fellow citizens. You want to be critical of that. I get it. What I'm saying about our political system, it's too polarized. And so we have to come together as Americans and come up with common sense solutions related to this thing.
I mean, Obama tried to get some gun control through Congress. That failed. Do you think that this president will be any more successful in trying to rein in at least?
He might be more successful because, you know, you mentioned all the money that the NRA gave him. I think the NRA probably trusts him. You know, it's sort of like that whole Nixon going to China sort of thing. I think it would be easier for him as a Republican, easier for him, given his long-term stance on the right to bear arms, to potentially cut a deal that does what I said, which is trying to achieve what I know is possible, which is the balance between the freedom but also the protection of innocence. The problem that President Obama had is, you know, this one-size-fits-all gun control is not going to work in a society like ours.
Where do you think we are now with Russia and the White House?
Did the president collude with the Russians? He didn't collude with the Russians. Did the Russians interfere in our election? I'll take on faith from the different intelligence agencies and what Robert Mueller is saying, that the Russians probably have been meddling in our elections for multiple election cycles, and they likely did it last year or in 2016. But what I will also take on faith is that it's not clear to me that they were trying to help Donald J. Trump versus Secretary Clinton as much as they were trying to unravel the trust that the average American has in the system and the electoral process.
Mr. Scaramucci, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Great
stuff.
It's nice to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Good luck.
God
Thanks.
bless. Okay, bye-bye. You're a tough interviewer. Did you like Charlie Rose? Okay, you're a tough interviewer. Okay,
oh, no,
I appreciate it. Don't hit the country so hard, though, because, you know, let me tell you something. This place is this is a phenomenal place, man. I mean, we're a little crazy. We're a little crazy with the guns, so we should knock it off now. But by and large, the place is amazing. Okay, and by the way, as Churchill said, the Americans always do the right thing after they exhaust every other possibility, and so hopefully we'll get there on the guns. Okay, all right, take care, man.
The Mooch, as they call him, getting animated there even beyond the end of that exchange.